So, Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde. I have no idea how either of these guys makes 175. I mean, they're absolutely huge at the weight. You have to imagine they're both walking around at 190 and are probably still ripped at 190 as well. So this is pure water weight that they're losing from their bodies to make 175. It's incredible that neither guy has moved up at this point. They're both in their 30s. Beterbiev in his late 30s, Anthony Yarde in his early 30s. Now, in terms of how I see this fight going, I do think Anthony Yarde has a chance, but I think it's got to be early, or at least in the first half of the fight. We've seen Beterbiev down against Callum Johnson. He is 38 years of age, and so the general idea that I think Anthony Yarde needs to go with is to fight a young man's fight. And a young man's fight involves volume, but it also involves speed. Okay, now, Artur Beterbiev is not the fastest guy in the world, particularly with his hands, but his feet are not actually that slow. If you watch that Joe Smith Jr. fight, he can move around the ring at a pretty good clip. It's his hands that are a little more, methodical and mechanical. But do not run up on Artur Beterbiev recklessly, because he can throw them short shots. And when you're moving towards him and he's throwing really short, compact punches, they might not look very fast when you're watching on television or you're watching at ringside. But when you're in there with him, the timing of them makes them surprisingly fast to be his opponent, I would imagine, because he knows when to throw them. And when you're coming at him and he lands accurately, I mean, just ask Joe Smith. He probably didn't see a lot of them shots that Artur Beterbiev hit him with. So, yeah, I think Anthony Yarde needs to fight a young man's fight. He needs to make his speed count. And the way you do that, see, Yarde has this way of boxing, which is quite methodical at times, where he boxes at this particular pace and there isn't really much change up of the pace. It's like this one pace. It's like a steady stream of punches, but there isn't like spikes where he really ups the pace really fast, explosive shots, and then comes down again. He doesn't really do that. He has the ability to do it, but for whatever reason, he chooses to box in this more methodical way, kind of like a Floyd Mayweather in his older years. That might be effective against a tired or a hurt, etc. Artur Beterbiev, but when Beterbiev is still fresh, I think Yarde's best bet is not to box that way, but to actually try and lead with power shots, explosive shots at long range, mid to long range, that Beterbiev potentially won't be expecting. That's the kind of thing an older fighter doesn't like to have to deal with. Typically, older fighters like to dictate the pace, slow things down, and have you dancing to their tune. A younger fighter's job is to go in there and don't allow that to happen. Introduce some chaos into the equation. Okay, not chaos for you, chaos for him. Do things that are unexpected. Do things that he doesn't normally have to deal with. Anthony Yarde has a good left hook. His left hook, I think, could be a key in this fight, the key to victory, if he can use it in the correct way. And the reason I say his left hook is because, yes, Beterbiev was dropped by a Callum Johnson left hook, but also because Yarde's right hand isn't usually as explosive or as difficult to see as his left hook is. There's a couple of ways you could set up a left hook, or numerous ways, but I'm just going to give you an example. Beterbiev is one of these guys where if you jab his guard, okay, and let's say you've got longer arms or a faster jab, he will sometimes bring his forearms together to block the front of his face completely. You literally couldn't fit a cigarette paper in between his two forearms if you're looking at him face on. But that leaves a gap around the side for a hook. So the idea would be throw them fast jabs at long range of Beterbiev's guard, bring that guard forward so there's a space around the side for the hook, and do that a few times and maybe throw a right hand afterwards, either to the body or to the head. You could also throw that jab, and then this is a risky move, particularly with Beterbiev's very good short punches. You could throw maybe a hook to the body. But the idea is setting up a left hook off his jab. That's something that could work for Anthony Yarde. Setting up a hook off the jab. And once you land that hook, you're in. If you manage to wobble him, hurt him, then Anthony Yarde can go to town and put some explosive shots together. I do think he's going to need that speed. He's going to need that pace in this fight if he's going to win. If he tries to box at Artur Beterbiev's pace and allows Beterbiev to get comfortable, I don't see things ending well for Anthony Yarde. And they might not end well for him regardless of how he boxes, right? But in order for him, at least in my view, to stand any chance of winning the fight, I think it has to be in the first 7 rounds. And it's going to have to come from some explosive shots, some stuff that Artur Beterbiev doesn't expect, speed that he's not used to, speed that he doesn't like. Yeah, that's where it's going to come from. And of course, for Beterbiev, he is going to have a look at the lay of the land, I'm sure, early on. He's seen it, been there, done it, bought the t-shirt, hundreds of amateur fights. I think he's had like 18 pro fights now, most of them being at a high level. He's seen all kinds of different styles. I mean, you look at Marcus Brown a few fights ago for Artur Beterbiev. He was a very athletically gifted guy with fast hands and all that kind of thing. And you see how Beterbiev dealt with him, even though he had that terrible injury on his forehead, right? Was still able to get Marcus Brown out of there. So he's seen all the styles, he's seen all the athletes and all this kind of thing before. So it's just a matter of, again, getting Anthony Yarde to dance to his tune, sticking a jab on him, doing certain things in there to make Anthony Yarde uncomfortable, to make him unsure of himself. And you can see that one of the things here, at the stare down, Artur Beterbiev was really looking into Anthony Yarde's soul. To be fair, Anthony Yarde didn't break the stare down off. He stuck at it. But I think this is Beterbiev trying to rattle the younger, less experienced man and see if he can get an edge here or there. Not like he necessarily needs an edge, but, he's in battle mode now, so he's looking to seek and destroy. This is one thing as well I forgot to mention. Yarde cannot allow Beterbiev to come forward at him. Beterbiev is still dangerous on the back foot, okay? When you're walking Beterbiev down, right, if you're trying to get to him, you're in the middle of the ring, you're hitting him with a jab, you're trying to set up that left hook. Keep a decent distance. Don't get too close like Joe Smith did, where his head is over his front foot and he's getting clipped with shots coming in. Don't do that. Even Callum Johnson fell for that. He got too close where you're inside and Beterbiev's able to get them short shots off. You don't want to do that. Keep that distance and try and throw the power shots from long range. Yarde is athletic enough and fast enough to do that, yeah, I think. And that's what I would say his game plan should be. Just keep that certain distance so Beterbiev can't get them short shots on you and just surprise him with speed. What you don't want is Artur Beterbiev walking you down. You don't want to get into a boxing match with him because Beterbiev can box, okay? And if he starts walking forward and you're going backwards, it's only a matter of time. You don't want that to happen. So either keep him in the middle of the ring, push him back if you can, but keep that range. Unless he's hurt, of course, but even then you've got to be careful. But the basic gist of it is keep a certain range where you can cover that distance quicker than he can because you've got the faster hands, presumably the faster feet, although Beterbiev's feet ain't slow, but you've got the faster hands, you're more explosive, you're more sudden. That's the kind of fight I think he should go for rather than this methodical approach that we often see from Anthony Yarde. Fast, almost like a David Haye type situation. Haye was a sporadic guy, so it wasn't like constant methodical work. He would move around the ring, then he'd jump in with a really fast shot that the opponent wasn't expecting. Set it up, maybe a couple jabs, feint, and then bam, he's hit the guy with a shot. That type of approach, I think, is Anthony Yarde's best bet against Artur Beterbiev. He is a big underdog, and he's a big underdog for a reason, because the smart money is with the champion, based upon all he's achieved, the styles he's faced, the power, the unbeaten record, the perfect knockout ratio, 100%. I believe there's no other champion in boxing at this stage that has a 100% knockout ratio. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, Beterbiev is that guy. He's the original beast from the East. Let's see if Anthony Yarde can supplant him for that name, because Anthony Yarde's name was the Beast from the East, should I say, for a while. So this is a battle between the two beasts from the East. Let's see who can come out on top. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Very much looking forward to this one. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.